In the beginning, the internet was fun. It was a place that you went to. There were communities that existed for you to explore your interests. But the internet at that point was also like a physical space you went to. My house, it was a desk with a computer, and you had to show up to that desk and be on that computer to be on the internet. And then when you were done, you got up and you walked away. It didn't follow you around. It didn't make its home in your pocket. And so here I am today. And what it feels like is that I'm doing battle with my phone every day. So I have this piece of deeply invasive technology that is ever present and really good at working around those boundaries that I've set up and involving me in this parallel universe that I don't want to live in. I was confronted by the situation my students were in, and I started seeing them really struggle to be present mentally, even though they were present physically, and they had a really hard time ignoring those demands upon their attention that were coming from their phone. The second I stuck my toe in, I just got sucked in deeper and deeper and deeper into the science and the studies behind what's happening to our attention. All of us were having our attention eroded by the clamoring, beeping slot machines in our pocket. And I couldn't get a quote by Chuck Klosterman out of my mind. It's been embedded there for 15 years. He writes, "My relationship with technology makes no sense whatsoever. It's the most important aspect of my life that I hate. The more central it becomes to how I live, the worse it seems for the world at large." And I kept thinking about that strange relationship and how it manifests in my own life. And I realized that I was spending less and less time on the things that for me signal a richness of life. Reading deeply, creating things, communing with my friends. And I looked at my students and I saw them out in the classroom and realized they were having an even harder time balancing full course loads, part-time, sometimes even full-time jobs with the obligations of their self-reported 6 to 9 hours of screen time on their devices a day. Attention exists to solve a problem, and that problem is information. At any moment in your life, you are surrounded by more information than your brain can possibly process at one time. So attention is your brain's way of picking out what's important from that absolute overflow of information. In his book, Sirens Call, Chris Hayes points out 3 different types of attention that are really useful to understand if we then want to see and keep track of how the attention economy affects us. The first is voluntary attention. It's probably the one that we think of first when we think of the word attention. It works almost like a spotlight that we have chosen to direct our attention to something. We have chosen to direct our spotlight of attention at a thing. The second type of attention is involuntary. All right, this is when you're just going about your day and you hear a very loud noise and you immediately look toward it. Voluntary attention works through negation. It's the suppression of everything that isn't relevant to us right now, that we don't need to pay attention to. Involuntary attention reaches out and grabs us, okay? It says there is something you need to pay attention to right here. The third type of attention is a little more subtle, and then it's called social attention. Social attention is best illustrated by something called the cocktail party effect. You are at a cocktail party and you're having a conversation with someone you know a little bit, more than an acquaintance, less than a friend. You're paying attention to them, they're telling you an anecdote about a recent snorkeling trip. You're fairly interested in what they have to say. But then all of a sudden you hear your name spoken by someone across the room. And your attention shifts quickly from the snorkeling person to the person across the room. Now, what's interesting about this is that it points out the fact that your brain has actually been monitoring all the conversation surrounding you at this time, but using voluntary attention to focus on one person. However, when you hear that name, your brain says, we gotta be focusing over here now. We are hardwired to notice mentions of ourselves by other people. And this is because human beings utilize social attention from literally the moment they're born. Attention is a precondition for care. You can't be fed or dried or clothed or warmed until you have the attention of someone else. The first person to really define the attention economy is Herbert Simon, all the way back in 1971. With the rise of computers, everyone kept saying we're in an information age. And he's the first person who really says, I'm quoting here, in an information-rich world, the wealth of information means a dearth of something else, a scarcity of whatever it is that information consumes. What information consumes is rather obvious. It consumes the attention of its recipients. So human beings are serial processors. This means that we can only pay attention to one thing at a time. We'll come back to this in a future episode because some people do think they can pay attention to more than one thing at a time, but strictly speaking, that isn't true. What this means is that our attention is a scarce and a finite resource. In 1997, Michael Goldhaber revisits this idea in a conference paper called The Attention Economy and the Net. He argues that the economy of the internet really doesn't have much to do with material things. It has to do with what flows through the internet, which is information. But then again, he also makes that point that information would be an impossible basis for an economy for one simple reason. Economies are governed by what is scarce, and information, especially on the net, is not only abundant, but overflowing. We're drowning in the stuff, and yet more comes at us daily. And the psychologist Warren Thorngate sums this up pretty nicely. He says, attention is exactly what we pay for information. It is the primary currency of our information age. It's also worth talking about what attention feels like. The writer Jenny Odell has said that attention implies alignment, meaning that the things you want to do and focus on are the things that serve your ultimate goals, not just in the moment to moment of your life, but also in the grand scheme of what you want to do, what you want to accomplish. And she mentions that distraction is the opposite, right? Bits and pieces of you flying all over the place, here, and everywhere. And that most of us now are feeling distracted most of the time. And that is because our attention is being mined like a precious resource. The philosopher William James has said that attention is what I agree to attend to. But more and more, we're not agreeing, right? Our attention is being fracked as part of the attention economy. But actually, when we use the phrase attention economy, what we're really talking about is what the scholar Shoshana Zuboff calls surveillance capitalism. This is what happens when you use social media. Images, videos, sounds, all of this is flying at you. You don't know what to do with it. Your brain doesn't know what to do with it, but you're enthralled to it. And here's the thing, behind the scenes, it's you who's being researched. These companies amass huge predictive models of your behavior and your preference, and they auction that information off to the highest bidder. This is why the algorithm knows you so well.
The goal is to feed you things that feel really, really relevant to you so that you stay there and you feel, directly seen by this technology. So you spend more time there so that things can be sold to you. These are happening in auctions in a fraction of a second. So we're using the predictive models not just to keep you on the devices, but how best to predict what kind of link you'd click on, what kind of ad you'd be interested in. So prior to the internet, advertising had to be encountered in the wild. And advertisers, tried to do their best at guessing based on the publication or the location who would be interested in a certain product. Now we have this situation where advertisers are able to build a really detailed, in-depth profile of not just your interests, but when you are interested in some things over others, where you are when you're interested in them, what are the people around you interested in, and use that to put advertisements in front of you that are incredibly specific and applicable to you.
The legal scholar Tim Wu writes in his book, The Attention Merchants, without express consent, most of us have passively opened ourselves up to the commercial exploitation of our attention just about anywhere, at any time. This is why you can't put your phone down, waiting at red lights, in line at the grocery store, sitting across the table from a loved one when you know you should be studying. And because your attention is so valuable, these companies are constantly developing new and more effective ways to get your involuntary attention over and over and over and over, or to enmesh you in social attention so that you spend more and more and more time on these devices so that more and more and more and more can be known about you, so that more and more and more can be sold to you.
Next up, what does this feel like on an individual level? How do you feel navigating the attention economy? Does this seem like something you deal with? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to this series for more information about how the attention economy really works and to learn strategies for navigating it.